7 or from championship number 6. Jordan, open, Chicago with the lead.
Minute remaining, and they're putting Curry in the pick and roll, trying to get him on Ervin. Ervin and Curry, one-on-one. Ervin puts it up. It's good! Kyrie Irving from downtown!
We're sending it in, Jerome. That's for damn sure.
Yo. What's up, everybody? And welcome to a Taproom Sports podcast. I'm your host, Jordan. Stacks on stacks on stacks, lats. And we are joined with a very special guest tonight, Chris Ransom from Draft Utopia. Welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
Thanks for having me on, Jordan and Ervin. It's going to be a lot of fun. I cannot wait to talk college football. We had a very exciting week one and looking to build on the momentum that this weekend's slate of games.
Hell yeah, man. And Ervin, back once again. No Henny tonight, so we're gonna be good. Yes, sir.
Let's go, y'all!
All right, so Chris, we appreciate you for joining us. We're going to be breaking down how many games? Five games on Saturday. So we usually stick to the bigger games, the games with ranked teams versus ranked teams, the games that have some sort of significance in the college football season. So I think we got some good games on deck this week. Week one, before we get into the games, I want to hear your thoughts about week one. What did you think about what happened week one? Any surprises, any letdowns?
Well, there were a few games I was looking at in the 3:30 time slot because most of the noon games really weren't that exciting. The Georgia-Oregon game was the one most fans were tuned into, but by the time Georgia led 28-3, I was like, you know what? I'm going to flip over to Houston UTSA because we talked about that game on our podcast being a potential surprise matchup, and it ended up being a really good game. It ended up going to overtime, and it surprised a lot of people because at first it looked like a defensive game. Then it ended up being more of an offensive shootout in the second half, and then Houston ended up getting hot in overtime and winning. But that felt like a classic game. It stinks that only a few people got to watch. Only the people that have CBS Sports got to watch it, but it was a fun game to watch. And then the Cincinnati-Arkansas game, Arkansas won that. And then the Ohio State-Notre Dame game. Ohio State was a little bit underwhelming, but they took care of business when it mattered. And Florida stepped up versus Utah. But that game between Cameron Rising and Anthony Richardson, it really felt like a chess match between the two dual threats. It just felt like Richardson made more big plays when it counted, and Rising, just unfortunate. His receivers couldn't break routes, as we discussed pre-show against Florida, because if they had been able to break better routes, maybe Utah comes away the victor. But a very impressive performance by both quarterbacks. Not otherworldly, but impressive debut by both of them, to say the least. What were your takeaways, Ervin, Jordan?
I mostly agree with you. I think you hit the nail on the hammer on the nail. If Utah had better wide receivers,
I like
if Utah had better wide receivers, I think they could have blew Florida out, because everybody knows Utah passing game goes through both of their NFL tight ends. Solomon Enos is a good outside target, but I don't know. I think Cam Rising doesn't trust him as much because he doesn't look his way. And if you go back and look at the film, it was a couple plays that they left out on the field where the receiver was damn near had a couple, like a step and a half or a step on a cornerback, but Cam didn't hit him. He went underneath, or he did a dump off, or he looked for his tight ends. That could be something to watch for Utah going forward. Teams might start keying in on those tight ends, and that's going to force Cam to beat you on the outside.
Yep. No, that's a good point. Before you jumped on, Chris and I were kind of talking about that game, and I was telling him that I was kind of I thought that Utah left some things on film that are going to open them up, because let's be honest, Anthony Richardson was great on his feet, but he wasn't killing them with his arm, right?
And it was legs.
They're going to have to beat a team in USC who has a dual threat quarterback who can actually throw the ball very accurately and has elite wide receiver talent, right? I think that could be a problem for Utah going forward. And I mean, Ervin, we talked about it in the college football season preview that, losing Devin Lloyd is like, that's huge.
Yeah, that hurt him a lot because if they had Devin Lloyd, Richardson would have been running all over the field
It
like
wouldn't
that.
have, for sure. So, I mean, that was a huge loss. I thought Utah, I didn't have them as like one of the biggest letdowns of the week, but I did think that, we looked at them as a top 4 team coming into this game. I don't think they are a top 4 team in the country.
Now they got to reel off some wins, and now I feel even more confident about choosing USC to beat them, especially with that defense giving up the kind of plays that they was giving up, because they wasn't giving up those type of plays last year at all.
Yep, and we'll see. We're going to talk about that game. That's going to be one of the last games we talk about, USC versus Stanford. This is the first big test for Lincoln Riley at the Farm, so we're going to get into that game. But let's hop into this first game. This is the big noon kickoff game. This is going to be played at Texas. This is actually only the second time these two programs have met head-to-head in the history of these two programs, which actually really surprised me. This is Alabama at Texas. The Alabama Crimson Tide come in 1-0. Obviously, they had a cupcake first game like they always do. They don't like to play real Power 5 programs outside of the SEC. They'll be facing Texas, who also beat, UL Monroe. They're 1-0 on the year. Right now, Bama heading into Texas -20. Big dog. This opened at 18.5, has been bet up to Bama -20. The total is 65.5. Chris, what's your thoughts on this game here on Saturday?
Alabama should win. They should win convincingly, but the big question is going to be, can Texas hang with them? Because you look at the Texas offense, you've got Quinn Ewers, Bijan Robinson, Xavier Worthy, Wyoming's receiver who led the Mountain West in touchdowns through the transfer portal, Billingsley at tight end, and 2 5-star recruits, freshmen starting at left tackle and right tackle. Can this Texas team do enough to cover the spread? Because I expect Alabama to win, but if Texas can actually play well enough to cover the spread and it's like 31-17, that's a win for Texas, in my opinion, because I don't expect them to beat Alabama. Alabama's got Will Anderson, the best edge rusher in the country, and they got another edge rusher with that 8.5 sacks last year. So
yeah, Turner, that dude's a dog too.
Yeah,
no, it is tough. I mean, there's a reason why they're 20-point dogs. Ervin and I, when we did the college football preview about the Big 12, our biggest question mark, we both said, and we both agree, Texas probably has the most talent in the Big 12, and they have talent on the level of the Bamas, the Georgias, the Ohio States of the world, but they have a head coach deficiency in Steve Sarkisian, and we've seen it time and time again where Steve Sarkisian teams underperform. Is this different this time around? I mean, last year they started off good, and it was a shit show at the end, right? That's the biggest question mark to me. Quinn Ewers, he looked all right. Their run game, they only rushed for 134 yards against UL Monroe. I do think that, it's going to be a lot tougher sledding on the ground. And a freshman quarterback going against Nick Saban, whoo! I think you got to lay the 20 here. Even at -20, I don't love it. I love the -18.5 a lot more, a 3-score game, But and you still get that wiggle room of having the touchdown. But I think the only bet here is taking Alabama -20 or taking the under in this game, because I don't think Texas is offensively is going to do a whole lot.
Yeah. I could see 31, 38, 17, but Alabama's got guys like Kool-Aid McKinstry, Eli Ricks, and Jordan Battle. I'm just not sure how Ewers is going to be able to pick those guys apart. Why don't you give us your thoughts, Ervin?
I feel like Texas has to not get blown off the field. Now, if they go out and just get destroyed, that'll make me wonder if they can actually compete with the Big 12, because a good amount of the Big 12 teams look like they're going to have talent. They're going to be put up points and play some decent defense. Now, Texas has athletes, but the coaches have to reel those athletes in and get them to perform as a functioning team.
Sorry, who's that one wide receiver that transferred?
The one that got kicked off the team, Hall.
Yeah.
Ajayi Hall.
Yep.
I wouldn't have recruited him anyway, especially when he got kicked off of Bama. If you can't get coached by Nick Saban, I don't think there's anybody that can really coach if you can't get coached by him. So he was more of a me type guy. He was, a rah-rah dude. He was not getting along with the coaches, cussing out his position coach multiple times. So they did show some type of culture building when they kicked him off the team to let people know that that's not going to fly at Texas anymore. And not, if it did happen in the past, it's not going to happen under Sark. So that was a good sign, but they did lose a high 4-star, 5-star athlete at receiver. But they not gonna miss him because they got plenty of talent behind them.
Yeah.
Now, the biggest key is, can the run game take some of the pressure off yours? Because at the end of the day, if they are gonna beat Bama, they're gonna need big games from Bijan and Quinn. Now, Bama secondary didn't really get tested against Utah State. They might get tested this week because Texas has 4 and 5-star talent at tight end and wide receiver. Now we got to see if they have a quarterback that could get them the ball against better competition. So that's going to be the biggest pull and tug and chess match between Alabama's secondary and the weapons that Texas have. I'm not expecting much from the run game. Whatever they can get from the run game will be a plus. Bijan Robinson is the consensus #1 running back for most people, guaranteed first rounder. So we're gonna see what he can do against Bama.
Yeah, and Texas is missing their starting right guard too, Junior Angelau. He's out for the season now, so that's a huge blow.
Yeah, that's not good on an already young offensive line that's starting 2 freshmen.
Yep, and he was one of the only guys on that line that had experience starting last year. So that's something to look at in this game. That could be a huge problem. You know what I mean?
Al, I think Alabama's most experienced D linemen are 34 left end. I don't remember his last name. I think it was Byron something, but he's a senior, I think. So that definitely helps Alabama out.
Yeah.
Yep, and Nick Saban's their coach.
That too. He just reloads in the front 7.
Now, another thing you got to look at too, I don't really know too much about Texas secondary. I know they're talented, but Bama receivers didn't really get that much separation week 1 against Utah State. Like Bryce didn't really have that many downfield shots that game. He had a couple, but that's another thing to keep your eye on. Is Bama still the same on the outside of Jermaine Burton? Because we know that dude has 4.3 speed, and he helped Georgia win a national championship last year.
Yeah, I mean they rushed for 278 yards last game. So when you do that, it makes things a lot easier.
Yeah, it made it a whole lot easier.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean they lost a lot of talent at the wide receiver position. I mean that was something we highlighted too. But they always seem to reload. I mean it's good. I think both teams have a lot of question marks, but I'd rather go into a game having a question mark about wide receivers than I do about having a question mark about a quarterback. You know what I mean?
I agree.
He's a young quarterback, and facing Nick Saban, I think that could be tough sledding. What do you think about what do you guys think about the total 65.5? Or do you think there's a play on that?
If Bama scores 40 or 50, maybe, but other than that, I would bet the under, honestly.
What do you think, Chris? You said 31-17 is your prediction?
I think I'm thinking the under. Only way the over would happen is if Alabama scored 40 points and Texas scored at 20 or more. I would say the odds of that happening aren't great. It's not impossible, but I just don't think the odds of that happening are great. And it's possible that Alabama was saving some of those deep passing looks for this game. They didn't want to tip their hand and used too many of those against Utah State, an opponent they knew they were going to beat pretty handily. Whereas Texas, they can go with more of those deep throws, and if Texas isn't expecting it, it'll work in their favor offensively.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
I agree.
So I think we're all kind of in agreement on this game. So let's move over to the next game. This is a game that Chris is actually going to be attending. I forget that there's a new name of this stadium, so I'm not going to try to name it, but it's the former Heinz Field. The Tennessee Volunteers are going to be heading into Pittsburgh to face the Pittsburgh Panthers, sorry.
Bob Nutting appreciates the shout out.
The Pittsburgh Panthers. Right now, Tennessee on the road, -6 favorites. Pitt +6. The total 66.5, which I think is a pretty high total for this game. Chris, what do you think about this game? I mean, you're going and you're pretty.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of offense in this game. And when I say a lot of offense, I think both teams are going to be scoring in the 30s. I'm leaning Tennessee 38-31, but I think this is going to be a high scoring type of game because you look at Tennessee's offense, they've got three marquee players. The first is quarterback Hendon Hooker. Second is wide receiver Cedric Tillman. And the third is left tackle Darnell Wright, who I've seen mocked in the first round of some mock drafts. I'm not that high on him, but I have seen him mocked that high. And if Tennessee goes 10-2, I would argue at least two of those three players will get pushed into the first round conversation. They'll probably have to prove themselves in their bowl game and the Senior Bowl, but they'll at least be in the conversation, assuming they stay healthy and avoid injuries. But this is a big game for Pitt too. They've got their entire offensive line back. They've got Slovis and Tennessee, even though they have one of the better outside linebackers in the country. They're a team that when Jeremy Banks is one of the better right outside linebackers at the weak side, but even though they have him, Tennessee did lose Alontae Taylor to the NFL draft, and they have one of the more suspect pass defenses, and it wouldn't surprise me to see Slovis throw for 300 yards on this team. So I'm going 38-31 Tennessee, but I expect a lot of high-powered scoring by both teams.
Irv, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I agree with Chris. It's going to be a lot of offense. Whatever defense could have the most stops or cause a turnover that leads to points, that could swing the game in that team's favor. But looking at week one, Pitt's secondary did lose two guys to the NFL, but they got to do something about that corner. I think he's on the left side. He was getting cooked against West Virginia. And Tennessee has better wide receivers than West Virginia, so he has to play a lot better. If he doesn't, that's going to Hendon Hooker probably will key in on him and just continue to go that way. Whatever the receiver they put on that side will get a lot of targets. I think Tennessee has to do more with the tight end, open up more of the field, because you don't just want to depend on your receivers outside, even though they look damn good against Ball State. But this is you're going to be facing a better defense, more athletes. I just hope that Pittsburgh makes some adjustments from week one. If not, they could get shredded by Hendon Hooker because, like Chris said, he looks like a first-round QB.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I do kind of worry, though, Chris, you mentioned Pitt's offensive line. That was supposed to be the strength of their team, dude. They kind of got pushed around by West Virginia at times in that game. They only rushed the ball for 76 yards. I think they're going to have to be able to rush the ball against Tennessee to compete in this game. I do think that it is going to be a high scoring game. I do lean the over in this game. But I think Tennessee's a better team. I think Tennessee's going to win this game by 10 or more. I think it's going to be a 2-possession game. So I would lean Tennessee minus the 6 points or 5.5, wherever you can get it at. I would still take it.
I agree with that, but I'd like to add the Pitt edge rushers. If Pitt's going to win this game, they're going to have to win this game with their defensive line. They're going to have to get some pressure on Hooker, and they're going to have to make some stops to take some pressure off the secondary, because I think that's the only way Narduzzi's squad can steal this game from the SEC.
Yep, I agree. And Chris, we were talking before we went on we were both kind of saying that Tennessee, they have a good opportunity to go 10-2 and kind of maybe even upset Alabama, at home, and really make a push for that SEC East title. But this is a game they have to win if that's going to be the case. So really looking forward to this one on Saturday. I hope you enjoy it out there. I heard you're going to be wearing a Rocky Top orange shirt. Is that true?
I don't know if I'm going to wear a Pitt shirt or a Rocky Top shirt. It's tough to say. I mean, I live in Pittsburgh, but my dad's alma mater is Tennessee. I feel like my only way I can make my dad proud is if I wear a Rocky Top shirt. It's really tough to say what type of shirt I should bring to Acrisure Stadium. I don't like that they took out the ketchup bottles and basically replaced the stadium with an insurance logo, but that's Acrisure Stadium, the new home of the Pitt Panthers and Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, man. Well,
gotta love it.
Good stuff. All right, let's talk about this next game. So I think we all pretty much agree on this one. Let's talk about the Kentucky Wildcats. They'll be heading into Florida Field, the Gator Stadium, the Swamp, to face the Florida Gators. Right now, Florida -6, coming off a big win against Utah, which, keep that in mind, big win off of last week. Total right now, 52.5. What's your guys' thoughts on this game? Chris, you want to go first? Ervin?
Why don't we start with Ervin? I'll save my thought.
This game is probably going to come down to the QBs, whoever has the better game. Now, both teams' running backs do need to do more because neither team's running backs did pretty much anything in their first games. I would like to see Florida wide receivers be a bit more productive on the outside too, instead of just Richardson throwing to somebody's open while he's scrambling and not being able to sit in the pocket and make throws from the pocket. Because even Utah did have him under a good amount of pressure, but he wasn't able to, just stand there and make throws from the pocket. I think he only did it like 4 or 5 times that I can recall. Will Levi is looking like a lot of teams have him really high on their draft board. Some mocks have him in the top 5 or top 5 or top 10 as a first round pick. So this is going to be his real first test of the season because he's going up against a traditionally good secondary and a team that puts out plenty of back end athletes in the NFL. So I think it's going to come down to the run game. Definitely, whatever team has a better run game and can Kentucky contain Anthony Richardson. If you let him get outside the pocket and make plays with his legs, he's deadly because he has the arm to make throws on the run, and he could get you with those throws when receivers break off routes, and he's going to put it right on them. And then, for the most part, they was catching those balls against Utah.
Yeah. Chris?
Those are some fantastic points, Ervin, with Will Levi and Anthony Richardson. I think if Kentucky's going to win this game, it's going to be through the ground, as you stated. Chris Rodriguez Jr., the starting running back for Kentucky, he's going to have to be the man in this game because Levi and Henderson can both sling it.
I think Christopher Rodriguez is suspended.
If he's suspended, I honestly not sure how Kentucky can win this game because Florida doesn't have Pierce, Kentucky doesn't have Rodriguez. Both running games are going to have to step up, but Florida's got a lot of defensive talent. Brenton Cox Jr. They've got a really Garvel. They've got a Gerbell, a really good defensive lineman. They've got Ventrell Miller at inside linebacker. Jason Marshall could be a top 5 pick in the 2024 NFL draft. I've seen him mocked in the top 5 of 2024 mocks. And they've also got Trey Dean III. So Florida's got a lot of really good pieces on defense, despite losing Kyer Elam to the Buffalo Bills, who we're going to see tomorrow night in the NFL debut. So
Christopher Rodriguez is suspended for this game.
Okay.
For the DUI he got back in May. And also Rashawn Lewis is out. He's suspended too.
So they're down to their 3rd string running back.
Rashawn Lewis is one of their wide receivers. But
okay.
Yeah,
but they lost Wandale Robinson to the draft to the Giants' 2nd round pick. So Lewis, Robinson, I think Florida's secondary is going to have a few picks on Levi. I had a 3rd round grade on Levi, but there are people that like Levi. I mean, I watched 9 games of his film, but he can improve. If he continues to build on the momentum this season, I think people are going to forget about what he did last year, and they're just going to look at what he's doing in his draft year because he led Kentucky to a 6-0 start a year ago. It's not like this kid can't play. We just haven't seen him shine without Robinson and Rodriguez yet.
Yep. I think this could be a closer game than – I think it could be similar to Utah and Florida, but lower scoring. And I think that's the only way Kentucky has a chance. Like, this game has to be played 24-21 type game. Like, that's how I think this game needs to play out in Kentucky's favor. Kentucky does have the defense to do it. I think they also have the athletes to shut Anthony Richardson down on the feet and really make him throw the ball, which should be something interesting. I don't have a play on this game. I don't love either side, but I would take Kentucky with the points if you put a gun to my head, and I would lean the under in this game. So I do think it's going to be a low-scoring game.
I agree with that, but if Kentucky's going to win, I think their linebackers have to step up because they did lose Pascal, they did lose some D linemen, but they have a senior middle linebacker, and I think their weak side linebacker Box, he picked off Iowa in the Citrus Bowl. Maybe that's not his exact name, but I know one of their linebackers picked off Petrus in the Citrus Bowl, and it was the game-winning interception to.
A lot of people pick off Petrus.
That's not really an accomplishment considering he had a 1.1 quarterback rating, 123rd out of 131 quarterbacks.
Yeah, that was pretty bad against
South Dakota State.
South Dakota State, man.
It was 7-3. They got 2 safeties after taking a 3-0 lead and it was tied 3-3, they won the game with 2 safeties.
Yeah, I mean that Iowa defense is gonna be good, but yeah,
that dude is legit terrible.
Yeah, he's. Me and Ervin had a debate on who's worse, him or Graham Mertz, but I think Mertz definitely might be a lot better.
Yeah, I think Mertz is better than that guy.
Oh man, that's some ugly stuff. All right, let's move into this next game, USC versus Stanford. This game is being played at the Stanford Stadium, the Farm. USC is 1-0 heading into Stanford, who is also 1-0. This is a battle of 2 good quarterbacks here, 2 underrated quarterbacks. Well, Caleb Williams might not be underrated, but Tanner McKee is definitely underrated. Right now, USC is -9 and Stanford +9. They're getting 9 points at home. The over-under 67.5. This game actually opened at 13. It's been bet down, so a lot of money has come in on Stanford. The total is 67.5. Chris, what do you think about this game before I get to Ervin? Because I know, Ervin's
I think Stanford's got a chance. Now, to be fair, USC should win this game because Stanford is one of the worst teams in the Pac-12 at defending against the run. The reason I think Stanford has a chance is A, historically speaking, they've had USC's number. B, if Tanner McKee can win the turnover battle against Caleb Williams, they have a chance, 10 returning starters. And C, Caillou Blue Kelly, the quarterback on Stanford that I actually mocked in the second round of my 3-round mock draft, he had a phenomenal game against Drake London. Now, is he consistent enough to be a first-round corner? I don't think so. But against USC, he was phenomenal. He was one of the few corners that actually managed to neutralize Drake London last year. Maybe the only corner that actually was able to limit what he could do before his injury. And now he's going to get Jordan Addison. He's going to get a different receiving core. And the USC is going to have film on him, but he's not going to have as much film or intel on the guys coming in through the transfer portal. So I am really interested to see if Addison can separate himself from the other receivers in this draft. He's got an opportunity to do that with a big game against Caillou Blue Kelly because Keyshawn Bout was pouting in the Florida State game. Jackson Smith-Njigba got laid out by Brandon Joseph and only came in for a few other plays after that. So wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 are coming off bad weeks. Addison, the consensus wide receiver 3, has a chance to cement himself as a wide receiver 1 with a big week this week against Stanford.
What do you think, Irv?
I agree with most of what Chris said. The only caveat that Chris forgot to bring up is USC is coached by Lincoln Riley now and not Clay Helton. So that's going to be the biggest difference.
Let's go, y'all.
I think Stanford is they're going to try to spread USC out and get the ball to those big receivers and those 101s. USC's got to win more of those and they lose. They got to win some of those 50-50 balls. Stanford didn't really run outside of that big run that EJ Smith had against Colgate. They wasn't really running the ball that really well. Yep. So I don't think their run game is going to be that good to the point where they can keep the ball away from USC. They're going to have to score points. And I mean, by points, they're going to have to score touchdowns to keep up with this offense because Lincoln Riley is full go. He plans on scoring 40 to 50 points a game. And I don't think any Pac-12 defense is built to stop them more so much that they don't get to that point total. Stanford will hang with them, but I think USC definitely covers and wins the game. But it could get ugly if Stanford can't score touchdowns. If they got to settle for field goals, this game could get out of hand pretty fast. Now, I'm not going to take anything away from Tanner McKee. He's super underrated. He has a lot of talent. The ball jumps off his arm. He makes sound decisions. He doesn't just have hella turnovers. So USC will have to be on their game because he has potential to shred pretty much anybody because that's how good he is. So if the defense comes and plays the way they played in the second half, honestly, I think this game could get ugly for Stanford because their O-line is not that good. They got to build that O-line back up to what it was in the previous years under David Shaw. So I think the first half it'll be competitive, but after that, I think it can get ugly at the Farm.
I think that the one thing that I think about this game, kind of where you guys didn't touch on, because I agree with like everything you guys said, all the points, is that USC's defensive line hasn't really been tested against Rice, right? And for Stanford to win this game, they're gonna need to tire out the defensive line. They're going to have to be able to run the ball. If they can't run the ball, and keep USC's offense off the field, I don't think there's a chance in this game. I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with them, like you said, Ervin. I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with scoring. But that's also not how Stanford plays anymore with McKee. So it's kind of like they have to adjust the whole way they play for this game because they cannot play into USC's hands offensively. If this becomes a 40-point game of a shootout, USC is going to win this game. They just have too much depth on offense. They have too many athletes on offense. They can just come at you in waves. Stanford has to keep that offense off the field. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do that because they're going to have to be aggressive. They're going to have to take chances to win this game. I think this one could get ugly. And this is a big game for LR. Or this is
it's his first test.
Chris, you did mention it. Stanford has had USC's number, and every time we think USC is back, Stanford puts them in the ground.
Yeah, they ended the Clay Helton era. They beat the shit out of USC at the Coliseum last year.
Yep.
And even though Stanford's got that really good corner in Caillou Blue Kelly, there's two corners that can limit Addison to 100 yards: Clark Phillips and Caillou Blue Kelly. But USC's so deep at receiver. They got Mario Williams from Oklahoma. They got their two other receivers not named Drake London back. Their number 5 receiver is Jerry Rice's kid who transferred from Colorado. They are so deep at wide receiver. We've said in the summer that this group might be deeper than Alabama or Ohio State at wide receiver. There's just that much depth on this USC Trojan squad. So Stanford was bottom in the Pac-12 in run defense and stopping the run. And USC now has Stanford's starting running back and Travis Dye from Oregon. They have 2 running backs, not just one. And they might rotate those guys and try to wear Stanford down by running the ball. And that's probably the approach I'd take if I were Lincoln Riley in this scenario.
And now they got a freshman that can take it 80.
Yep.
Rayleigh Brown. So you just pick your poison.
Yeah.
Is he a freshman, Ervin? A true freshman?
He's a true freshman.
Modern day high school.
The one thing that USC does have depth offensively, but they don't have depth defensively, which is why it's important for Stanford to wear USC's defense down. That's the only way they're going to be able to win this game, in my opinion. It's not about what USC does offensively. USC is going to put up points. And honestly, Lincoln Riley, a lot of people don't know this because they just think air raid, he likes to throw the ball, but he always has a good rushing attack. And he always wants to establish the run.
He's averaged over 170 yards a game in his career. The worst year he had was, I think it was a couple years ago when he only averaged like 150, 155 a game, but that's still.
I think that was last year.
Yeah, that's still a lot of rushing yards. So, and he prides himself on running that counter, power football. He's not all finesse. That's what separates him from other air raid coaches is he believes in first and running the ball and doing everything off of that. Now, the one thing Stanford do got to watch out too is they have a freshman edge guy in David Bailey, who is pretty good. He was a high 4-star, borderline 5-star guy, but he's going to probably have to drop into coverage because they're probably going to try to take advantage of him with the tight end because USC finally is using the tight end in their offense now. Yep. So we got to watch, can those linebackers and those safeties contain USC 2 tight ends, which they didn't use much in the Rice game. I think that's for a reason because I think Lincoln's going to try to attack the middle of that defense with the tight ends because they struggled. They struggled all last year in the middle of the field, and that's one thing USC couldn't exploit last year. I think they're going to be able to exploit it this year.
Yep, agreed. All right, so Chris, are you on Stanford to cover or are you on USC?
I'm leaning towards Stanford covering, but USC should win this game.
Yeah.
But it really wouldn't surprise me. Either outcome wouldn't surprise me.
Ervin, what do you think?
I got USC winning 42-17 or 38-20, that type of game.
Yeah. If taking the best bet from this game, I think I would lean the under 67.5. I don't think Stanford's going to be able to score that much. Mm-hmm. But I do also like USC -9. I'm hoping this gets bet down a little bit to like -8 or 7.5. Then I'll take it. Hoping that's a good number. 9, not a great number. Bet numbers, not teams. All right, let's move into this last game. We're going to talk about the Baylor Bears coming off of a Big 12 championship last year. They will be heading into BYU to face the Cougars in Utah. Right now, Baylor +3 dogs. BYU -3. 53.5 is the total. Chris, what do you think about this game? Can Dave Aranda go back home and win it?
This is going to be an interesting game. I think it's going to be in the trenches. I think the left tackle matchup is going to be the matchup to watch. Baylor's got Connor Galvin, but BYU's got a blind side that can block too, and Blake Freeland. And both guys are draft eligible this year. And I've seen Freeland go in the first 3 rounds. I've seen Garland go as high as the first round. So I think this is a big game for both of the left tackles for Baylor and BYU. I think whichever left tackle plays better, that's going to be who wins. But I'd give BYU the slight edge because they have a quarterback that can throw the ball in Jaron Hall, who reminds me of Desmond Ritter from a leadership standpoint. He reminds me a little bit of Ritter, but he's got that arm that Wilson had at BYU, which is quite a formidable combination at the QB position.
I'm surprised you don't like Blake Shapen.
I do like Baylor. I'm just not familiar with him. And Baylor's got a really good middle linebacker who can make this offense one-dimensional. So we'll see what happens. I could see this game going either way, but I think this is going to be a fun game because BYU is a tough team to beat on the road.
Yeah, real tough. That altitude, yeah.
Yeah, no, they are. That is a tough place to play. What do you think, Ervin?
Yeah, I agree with. I think, like Chris said, I think it's going to come down to defense and running game. But whatever quarterback makes the better decisions and the better plays, I think that's who wins. Because, like he said, Hall is a damn good quarterback. I liked what I saw from him last week, and that arm is nice, and he's accurate with the ball too, and he can beat you from the pocket. And his legs are just a plus. Now he did have one bad interception, but I think he'll learn from that. I like BYU, man. The home field advantage in Provo is real. I've seen USC go there and get pretty much, I think we was like a 10-point favorite and lost that game in overtime. So they do have a true home field advantage. I like their defense. I like what they got on the outside. I like the pass rush too. They don't have NFL type pass rushers, but they do have solid pass rushers that can get the job done on the college level. So this is going to be a big test for Baylor, man. If Baylor can pull this off, I think they can show that they're the top team right now to beat in the Big 12.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that. I think this is, Baylor did lose a lot of good players last year. And Blake Shapen, I think, Chris, you have a point. Like, there was a lot of question marks about him. I know they faced Albany, but I'm not going to lie, dude. I didn't expect them to put up 69 points against anybody. So I was kind of, taken aback by how well the offense did play. And yes, I know it is Albany, but this is a bigger test. And going into BYU is a very difficult place to play. Blake Shapen he's nails, bro. That kid got balls of steel, dude. So, the drive he put together against the Oklahoma game in the Big 12 championship was huge. I mean, this team totally turned around once he became the quarterback. He might not have the greatest talent in the world, but he's a winner. And I think that could be something to look for in this game. I am going to take BYU. I do agree with everything you guys said about Hall, the defense, the talent. I think they're a little bit more talented than Baylor. But if Baylor wins this game, man, they might be the best team hands down in the Big 12 because I think BYU is a phenomenal opponent and winning a game like this at BYU, huge.
I agree.
So this is a game that I'm really looking forward to, and it sucks because it's on at the same time as the USC game. So I'm gonna be watching this game and USC, and it's gonna be tough, but we're gonna pull through it because that's what we do. All right,
Let's go, y'all.
let's get some best bets for this weekend. So of all the games we talked about, give me at least one bet that you like, Chris.
I like Tennessee -6.5. I think that is the safest bet of all the games. And I'm sorry to do this to my hometown city. It's just, I think Tennessee I think Tennessee's one of the safer plays this week with such a low point spread number. And I think it's going to be a shootout of a game. It's going to be a lot of fun, though.
Yep. Ervin, what do you think?
I'm going to go, my best bet is I'm gonna upset the trump card a little bit. I'm gonna take Baylor with the points +3 at home versus. I'm taking
road.
BYU with the points
Minus,
at home.
yeah, +3. BYU +3. Ervin, I'm with you, dude. I think my favorite bet of this weekend is BYU plus the 3 points. I would be first, and then I would take Tennessee second. I think I agree with both of you guys. I like both those bets. I'm with it. Let's make this money. Let's get these people to the window, cash these tickets. Let's go. Before we get out of here, Chris, since you do, everybody, for those that aren't aware, Chris is from draftutopia.com. He literally mocks like every fucking draft imaginable: NHL, MLB, MLS, NBA, NFL. What else do you do, Chris? What other sports?
Those are the 5 main ones. And I've got a 2023 NFL and MLS mock draft up. I did a 3-round mock last week, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do 101 picks. I'm going to do the comp picks too. I'm going to go the extra mile because I've done a little bit more research on this class. And I think it's a really strong QB draft. That's why I felt I had a moral responsibility to give back to the community and give back to my readers by really studying this class pretty extensively. So,
nice.
You know, it's going to be a fun week 2 of evaluations.
Hell yeah. And you can find him on Twitter at DraftUtopia. You can go to www.draftutopia.com. You can find out everything there, all his mock drafts. My man puts in a ton of fucking work. So, you know, always appreciative of the stuff you put out, Chris, especially the film cuts you do. I always love watching those on YouTube, man. I always appreciate those.
Watch that one he posted tonight about CJ Stroud. He left a lot to be desired on that field.
Yeah,
against Notre Dame.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch that. He was literally telling me he just finished it up as we were like getting ready to go on. I was like, oh,
yeah, I finished up the recordings this afternoon, but I uploaded all 6 of them to YouTube like 2 hours before we went live, and I actually managed to get enough time to promote all 6 of them tonight. So tomorrow it'll be NFL Week 1 predictions on Draft Utopia's Facebook page, facebook.com/draftutopia. And tonight you can just relax, pull up a cup of coffee or some beer, and you can watch some game film,
some agua, nice,
before you go to sleep.
Hell yeah, man! We appreciate you, Chris. Before we get out of here, what players should people be aware of for this NFL draft that may not be household names right now, but may be towards the end of the season?
I do like Skinner. I think he's one of the sleepers in the draft. I told you about him last week. Yep. I gave him an A grade for man and zone coverage. He fell the 3rd round. I've seen him one mock draft actually put him on the Buffalo Bills in the late 1st round. And while that might be a reach at this point, I can't blame the person that did that, because I've done a podcast with them and I can see their opinion and their perspective on that situation. And offensively, a dark horse I like in the 3rd round of the draft. I'm a big believer in, I think Grayson McCall could be a day 2 steal on the right team. He's a good game manager. I think he's going to be one of the better value picks in the draft. And I do like South Dakota State starting tight end, even though they can only put up 3 points on Iowa. I think South Dakota State's starting tight end might be their best tight end since Dallas Goedert. And he's my top FCS prospect on the offensive side of the ball.
It's high praise right there. Dallas Goedert had himself a good career. He's still playing.
Yeah.
Man, appreciate you, Chris. Thank you for coming on. I know it's late out in Pittsburgh, dude. It's over 1 a.m., so I'm going to get you out of here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Again, make sure to go to draftutopia.com. Check out all of Chris's work. I'm telling you, this dude doesn't even sleep. All he does is work. And I appreciate guys like that, man. I appreciate you, Chris. So for Swerve and Ervin, for Chris Ransom, I'm Jordan Stacks on Stacks Lads. Make sure to go to Devour.com or download the Devour app straight to your mobile device and use promo code Taproom for $10 off your first purchase of $25 or more. We're going to be out of here. We'll be back Sunday to recap NFL, and then Ervin and I will be back Monday night. We will be talking a lot of college football recap and really diving into the week. Y'all have a very blessed weekend. Enjoy a busy weekend of sports, man. We got a lot going on. Y'all have a blessed night. Thank you.
Sure.